Auburn is not a place, it is a people. The loveliest village on the plains is more than a college sports venue, more than a university filled with historic buildings, more than a quaint little southern town. Its worth lies within its people, those that call Auburn home, whether that be for a single day at a time or for a lifetime. Much like our legendary Toomer's oak trees, our stories are the product of a firm foundation laid in the beginning of our Auburn story. These are the stories of the Auburn family. These are their roots.
War Eagle Auburn family members, and welcome back to another edition of Auburn Roots. This is our journey of exploring and sharing the stories of your Auburn family members. On episode 34, we're getting together with another special member of the Auburn family, one that is special to the E2C Network family, because a little shout out here, part of the E2C Network Booster Club, Mr. Kevin Nelson is joining us to tell us about his Auburn roots, his love of all things Auburn, but especially football, baseball, and he's even got some family ties there that are pretty interesting with parents that maybe didn't see the light like he did early on. But we'll talk about all that. I'm going to let him tell the stories because he can do a much better job than I can of that. But let me introduce my guest, Mr. Kevin Nelson. Kevin, welcome.
Hey, thank you. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it.
I appreciate you being willing to just hop on here and talk with a random stranger that you hardly know and talk about what we love so much about being members of the Auburn family. The thing that I always like to maybe try to start with is, in just a general sense, without asking like how you became an Auburn fan, just think about like even today, what is it about Auburn that you continually choose Auburn? Like, what is it that makes you still want to be an Auburn fan, an Auburn family member?
Well, like the last thing you said, family. And so there's something about it. Like once it got into my blood at age 7 or so, I'm not sure how it happened, but at some point, an Inside the Auburn Tigers magazine ended up at our house, even though my parents were Bama fans, and I just could not stop looking at that magazine. And so and as I grew older, I got to the age where I was trying to figure out college, and ended up going to AUM mostly because it was in close proximity to Auburn, and it was a small enough campus where I felt like I wouldn't be overwhelmed. But I was telling you earlier, I went with a trip. On a trip with my mom to Atlanta, and on the way back home, she drove through Auburn because she knew that I loved Auburn, despite them being Alabama fans. She drove me by the stadium, and just something about the town of Auburn. It's more than football. It's more than basketball. It's more than baseball. For me, it's just the Auburn family, the city of Auburn. It's just something that I love, and I can't get up there often enough. And so, I mean, that's pretty much the genesis of my Auburn fandom,
yeah,
as you would say. So,
well, I think it's interesting that you said that, because so many people that I talk to say the same thing, that they can't really pinpoint how or when sometimes. Some of us can, but like there's almost this magnetism that draws us towards that city. And not even necessarily toward the city itself, because here on the show, we always say, Auburn is not a place, it is a people. It draws us towards each other because, no matter what our background is, where we come from, what we look like, we all kind of share this common bond. And there's something about that place that kind of just draws us together and makes us want to be around each other, with each other, and celebrating these things that are so awesome. So I'm glad that you experienced that even at a young age, despite some of your upbringing. So tell me a little bit about that. Are your parents rabid Alabama fans, or are they kind of just down the middle? How's that going?
Yeah, I would say, my mom, and neither one of them graduated from Alabama, but they did go to college. So they, my mom went to nursing school, and my dad went to a small college here in Mobile. And I'd say they have a lot of stuff around the house, and they enjoy watching the games, but they're not overbearing with it, like, going crazy during games or anything like that. And they were okay they didn't give me much pushback on me like in Auburn. So overall, it was a great, childhood experience. My best friend was an Alabama fan. And so I just I wasn't going to go with the crowd, and I wanted to do my own thing. And something about Auburn, and like at that age, orange, blue, the tiger, just the uniforms, it just all spoke to me at that age, and it just never let go of me. And so,
yeah, I'm glad that your parents weren't one of those that we hear the stereotypical story of the Auburn Alabama rivalry. And it goes both ways, where my son is or my daughter is not going to that other school, and it gets said on both sides. I'll admit,
yeah,
I've
right.
probably rumored that I'm going to say that once I have kids, but I'm glad that your parents at least recognize that, hey, my son is interested in something a little bit different, and that's okay. They don't have
Right.
to be necessarily exactly the same that we are, and want to do the exact same things, have the same interest. And the fact that they're even willing to drive you that direction just to go see this place.
Mm-hmm.
So you alluded to that story of driving past that. Like,
Mm-hmm.
what was it that stuck out to you about the college? Like, we talk a lot about the nebulous idea of family, but like, what really stuck out to you that kind of drew you into it?
I just remember driving past the stadium and it just looking so large. Like it was the largest thing at that age I think I'd ever seen. And seeing the AU and just I guess at that age, not so much the campus, because I mean we practically just drove straight to the stadium. But I do remember it being nice. But the stadium was so large, and it was just so almost overwhelming to see it. And I was more or less in awe of it. And so I distinctly remember that image.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, they sometimes draw you in. It's especially when you're a child. You look at these grand structures, and
Mm-hmm.
I know the statues probably weren't out there during your time. But even if you're walking
Mm-hmm.
past stadiums now and you see these almost like Taj Mahals, like dedicated to these legends of Auburn sports, it's easy to see why that draws in people and kind of makes you just kind of let me know a little bit more about this.
Yeah. Well, this was during the mid '80s.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm 44 years old, so this was mid '80s. This was when Tracy Rocker was doing his thing, the Outland Trophy winner. So we didn't even get out of the car. I just remember just being in that old Pontiac station wagon, looking out the windows with just that awe of a child, just seeing that huge stadium. It was unbelievable, and something I'll never forget.
Yeah, those images really stick with you, and it's hard to sometimes we immortalize these like special moments in our time. It's hard to like beat anything past that when time comes up. But during your time as being an Auburn family member, I'm sure that you've had many moments that you've experienced that are just as incredible, and we'll get to some of those. I always like to ask people too, kind of where they are now, where they've kind of grown up, and you've grown up in the Mobile-ish area, Daphne County area. What's it like being an Auburn fan in that part of Alabama? Is there a breakdown in terms of like a percentage Auburn to Alabama fans that you can think of, or
I don't know the exact, but Mobile, Baldwin County, I'd say Mobile County is certainly more Alabama fans. Baldwin County, there's more Auburn fans over here as opposed to what's in Mobile County. I don't know the breakdown in Baldwin County. There's a lot of Alabama fans in Baldwin County too.
Mm-hmm.
But it seems with the rural and agricultural makeup of Baldwin County, there seems to be a little bit more Auburn on this side.
Mm-hmm.
But living in Baldwin County and only 45 minutes or so from the beach, it's getting to live where people like to vacation. It's nice, and I wouldn't live anywhere else besides Auburn.
Yeah, you do have a pretty sweet setup there. I'm not going to lie. I've been tempted myself to try to strike up a residence somewhat near the beach, but still stay within an earshot of Auburn. Hasn't worked out for me just yet, but so I'm very jealous of your situation right now. Speaking of which, you're talking about living in the area and it being a congregation like area for people for vacations and stuff like that. I've always thought about this too. I feel like I see a certain group of other fans besides Auburn and Alabama show up. Are we thinking about the same ones?
Yes. LSU people come over in droves over here. They love our beaches, and I can't blame them because they don't have any over in Louisiana, and what they have in Mississippi doesn't compare to Gulf Shores or Orange Beach. But I've always got along great with LSU fans. I've never had any issue with them, and they seem to be a lot of fun to hang out with sometimes.
They are known as probably the party people of the
Mhm.
SEC. I've frequented, not, I shouldn't say frequented. I've been there one time, and that would be like the only time I go to Baton Rouge because we did not have a great experience there. But I'm always amazed at the amount of LSU fans that mingle and mix in with the Auburn and Alabama fans in Gulf Shores or in Orange Beach. And it's funny to think about this too, because I guess we get in our little, special worlds here, and we just think that this is our little section of the world. Nobody comes here except the Auburn, Alabama fans. But then you realize how many people actually do come there and utilize that area. I mean, I don't think a lot of people know too that the SEC soccer championships every single year take down in Orange Beach. Have you ever been to that, or at least seen that?
I haven't, but I've watched it on ESPN, and it's awesome that they have that down there.
Yeah, it's a great place because the time it's being played too, it's getting colder up here, as you get further north. So it usually stays pretty mild down there, warm at least still. So it's a great setup. So if Auburn fans that don't know that, if you're ever wanting in like November, I think it is, to take a random trip down to the beach, you might see the Auburn Tigers competing in the SC championships down there. One other thing I would keep talking about other fans that come to the beach. I noticed this particular year, we're in 2021 for those listening far off in the future, another certain group of fans that I was shocked with that I saw the amount of. How are the Arkansas fans down there? Have you been seeing a lot more of those recently?
Yeah, you do see a lot of Arkansas Razorback tags. Definitely.
I was shocked this last trip that I took. I saw just as many Arkansas fans as I did LSU fans. And it was, I almost stopped and asked one, I was like, why are you down here? What are you, I mean, I get it's Arkansas. There's not a lot to do up there except Arkansas football. But I was like, that's a long way to come to this beach. So it tells you how much, it's a really great place to come and vacation to.
Oh, yeah.
And you can surround yourself, obviously, and be around Auburn and Alabama fans, the best in college football. So, hey, there's that as well. What in being in Mobile, you talked a lot about maybe the cities, a little bit more Alabama. You get out to more rural stuff that's more Auburn people. Is it pretty, civil there during Iron Bowl times, or do you kind of see any mixing and mingling when it gets to that time down in Mobile?
I don't know. I think there's been times where things didn't go over so well. I think not too far from here, there was something on the news just a couple of years ago. I don't want to between an Alabama fan and an LSU fan, but the Iron Bowl here, for the most part, I think it's peaceful. I know when we win, my neighbors, they hear me. But I think for the most part, it's civil, I guess. I haven't heard anything too crazy.
Gotcha. Well, let's talk a little bit about your time leading up to, college and stuff like that. And before we get there, just what do you remember growing up? We talked about your trip that kind of, solidified you. This is kind of the place I want to be drawn to. But do you have any big games or any moments growing up that you remember going to that really stick out to you or anything?
No,
like that?
I didn't actually go to my first game until I went to college, 1997, I want to say. And it was one of those early games, of the season. It wasn't against any powerhouse or anything like that. So basically growing up, what I saw was what I saw on TV and or in a magazine, and that was before internet. So that tells you right there how old I am. So for the most part, growing up, it was watching Iron Bowls with my parents. So I'm not sure how often they were actually on TV back then. I can't recall, but I do remember watching the Iron Bowl with my parents or with friends growing up.
Do you have a favorite one that sticks out that you watched on TV or anything like that? I think I'm trying to think back during that time. It was okay time, but not great for the Iron Bowl for Auburn.
Yeah, I don't recall one in particular while growing up. I do remember the 1997 because that's when I moved to Montgomery, and I believe that's when Alabama running back fumbled the ball late, and we were able to get on it and kick the game-winning field goal. Because I was on a date with a girl for the first time, and we went to this church function, and I basically got so focused on the game and forgot about her. So and that didn't go too far. but I do remember that game, watching it while at the church. So,
well, I think you're not the first gentleman ever to get accused of being a little bit paying more attention to a football game than your significant other. Unfortunately, that's probably a more common thread for as guys than we'd like to admit.
Yeah, it wasn't a good choice for a first date. So,
we'll just leave that in the past and just kind of bury that one there. Bad memories all the way around. All right, well, let's talk about getting to college. You decided to go to AUM. You're not a graduate of Auburn, and I think one of the things I do want to stress when we talk about that, and as an encouragement to you, it doesn't strike me that this really bothers you or anything like that, but you get a lot of people sometimes that talk about the sidewalk fans. I don't really see that there are sidewalk fans. Just because you didn't go to Auburn doesn't mean you're any less of an Auburn family member. And I don't get offended, because I think people get too offended these days about anything, but I almost kind of want to stick up for people like you, because a degree doesn't dictate you being an Auburn person. The creed really is what dictates you being an Auburn person.
Well, I'll say, my diploma has the president of Auburn's signature on it. So
that is true. That is very true.
And it has the Auburn seal on the bottom of it. So, AUM to me is just, that's just what best fit me at the time. And so I needed that smaller environment to not get so distracted with all the outside influences. And so that's just worked for me. And it was close to Auburn. And that allowed me to go to Auburn as often as I wanted to see different sporting events, or go hang out with, on campus with some other fraternity brothers. So it just worked for me.
So when did you arrive, and when did you graduate, and what did you graduate with? Like, what type of degree?
I arrived in March of 1997. And in 2001, I graduated with a bachelor's in psychology. And then I stayed on and stayed at AUM and got my master's in criminal justice. I was working at the federal prison on Maxwell Air Force Base as an intern, and earned my master's degree. And then I went to work for the federal prison and moved to North Carolina briefly, and then came back to the Mobile area. And now I'm with work for the state of Alabama as a probation officer.
Okay.
So
psychology degree, but stayed on and did some criminal justice work. I'm trying to think about the time that you were there at AUM. Now it's called Auburn Montgomery. It was called Auburn University at Montgomery. Was that correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Yeah.
See, I always found that interesting, because growing up, I actually grew up in Montgomery myself. And I remember driving past that university all the time and just thinking, wow, Auburn's so big that they extend all the way. I remember asking my dad that one time. I was like, I didn't realize Auburn was this big. He's like, hold on. It's not really that. And you guys were the Senators back then. Now you're the Warhawks.
That's correct. And it changed while I was there. When I started AUM, we were the Senators. Our mascot looked like the Ole Miss Rebel, the whatever he is. And so, of course, they got rid of that. And then they let the student body vote, which was a big mistake, I guess, because they changed our mascot from that to a teal horse, horse the color of teal, and called us the Mustangs. Yeah, it was brutal. Bad choice. So I'm glad they rectified it, and I'm okay. Their branding and marketing on this Warhawk, I think was a lot better than what they used to have, and I'm cool to call myself a Warhawk now.
So I guess my question to you is, and I think it's kind of obvious the way they went. Do you really think that the name they chose was try to invoke War Eagle, but not be the exact same thing?
I wouldn't. I don't know. I would be inclined to think so. Yeah.
Because when I saw that announcement that they changed to Warhawk, I was like, well, it was interesting because I know there was a time that Auburn Montgomery was, as they were doing the name change, they were kind of trying to take the at Montgomery part of it and make it seem like they're their own thing a little bit more.
Right.
It seemed like during that time where they're kind of focusing on trying to individualize themselves from Auburn, it's interesting that they chose a mascot that pretty much evokes that. I mean, it's not an eagle.
Well, in the early 90s, diploma is actually only said Auburn University.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
I have a friend of mine that's all his diploma says.
Yeah.
And somewhere in the mid-90s, they added the at Montgomery. I think, and I think the board of trustees at Auburn, it still dictates what AUM can do and can't do. So, I mean, they're kind of an umbrella school, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, they are. I think obviously the association is still there from what I understand, but it's definitely become less and less as time goes on. I mean, now you see Auburn Montgomery on the degrees and not just Auburn University. And I will tell you as a personal story here, my parents, I actually spent 2 years there myself before I made it to Auburn. They kept convincing me. They're like, "You're still gonna have Auburn on your diploma," and I was like, I gotta, if I can get there, if I've got the grades, I've got the money, I gotta go do it for real.
Yeah.
But I also think it's a good thing that you recognize that maybe the setup at Auburn Montgomery was a little bit better for you personally. If you needed more attention or, more focused type of a situation, because there are some distractions that can definitely happen at a major university like Auburn. How does campus life, and I know you obviously didn't go to Auburn as a student, but like in your mind, what's the difference between Auburn Montgomery campus life and Auburn University?
I guess just the size of it, more or less. I mean, even at AUM, we had a pretty diverse campus. We had a lot of international students. We had a pretty good tennis program. So it's just AUM is just so minuscule in size compared to Auburn, and just being on campus at Auburn, I don't know. I just loved it. I always wanted to go there, but I knew what was best for me and what I could take on and handle. And, but I think just the beauty of Auburn, it's something to take in, but I just, the two is just apple and oranges. But as far as the student body, it's just a small, I think AUM is just a smaller version of Auburn, because we had, like I said, a pretty diverse group of student body. But just Auburn is it's hard to explain. It's just a beautiful place to be. So
I know we've been talking about AUM a lot, but I do love talking about this topic because the connection is so strong there between the two universities. Did you ever buy one of the T-shirts that were in the student center that said AUM football is still undefeated?
Yeah, I didn't buy one, but one of my fraternity brothers did. And I want to say at some point, it might have been after I had already graduated, but AUM actually beat Auburn in basketball in a exhibition game. Is that right? Do you remember that?
Yes, I do.
Yeah.
Yes, I do.
I don't know what year that was.
I was wondering if you were going to bring that up. That's I remember seeing that headline come across, and I couldn't even address it. It hurt me to think about it, and I think that kind of no offense to AUM's program, but AUM should not be beating Auburn on any day. And I think that shows you how far the talent had dropped and the coaching had dropped at the basketball program. But also to the credit of AUM, and I'm sure you're probably aware of this, Coach Larry Chapman, who is the legendary coach for AUM. He has ties back to Auburn basketball himself. It shows you how good of a coach he was and how he had his boys ready for it was an exhibition game, but he had them ready for the opportunity. Did you ever go to any basketball games at AUM?
I think I might have went to one or two. It just really wasn't a thing that people really did on campus, unfortunately. So not really.
I always equate Coach Larry Chapman. I compared him to the Pat Dye of basketball. It's what he struck me as. I never got to meet Pat Dye, but just seeing him, how he would interact with people and stuff. It was, and getting to know Coach Chapman myself. I was like, this is, if Pat Dye was a basketball coach, this is kind of who it would be.
Well, you bring up Pat Dye, and I forgot this story. When I was a kid in 1988, I went with my friend to the state high school championship up in Birmingham. And his mother, I don't know what she did for a living, but while we were at the game, she took me, knowing I was an Auburn fan, took me up to the press box and introduced me to Pat Dye. And I can't believe I forgot that story, but yeah, I remember her tapping him on the shoulder because he was up in the press box looking down at the field, and he turned around in his chair and she introduced me to him. I just, just one of those moments. I was just like, I was an 11-year-old kid that I didn't know really what to say, but nice to meet you. And it was a great moment.
Well, tell me a little bit about what, from your 11-year-old mind, obviously, and that's been a while back then, but what was he like? I mean, did he say anything to you? Was it kind of like, just general stuff, or?
Yeah, I think it was a very brief, hey, it's nice to meet you type thing. I don't think much was said, but just shaking his hand and be able to get to go up there, because I don't, anybody just couldn't go up there, and she had access to it. And just her doing that, I thought was really nice.
Yeah, that's a very nice gesture that a lot of people have not had the opportunity to. So the fact that you shook hands with, arguably, we're not going to play rankings here on this show, but one of the greatest coaches in Auburn football history. But he definitely deserves. When you have the field named after you, I think that shows how beloved you were, but also how great a coach you were. As an Auburn Tiger family member. All right, so we talked a little bit about college and time there. You've graduated, moved on, and now there's life now. Tell me a little bit about your Auburn experiences after you've graduated and you've gotten older and gotten married and had kids. What's been going on with that? What are some big games that you've attended?
Like I said before we started, a 2006 Florida game. I was up in the way upper deck, but I got to see the flip into the end zone, and that was by far the loudest I'd ever heard Jordan Hare Stadium. It was deafening, and it was just so eruptive. And a few years after that, went to the Clemson, LSU, the SEC championship, and then the national championship in 2010. That was unbelievable. That was the Clemson game. That was a close game.
Yeah.
The one I thought we were about to just lose. And luckily, I think they missed a field goal and we were able to pull out the victory. The LSU game, that's when I got to sit in the Nelson suites, even though I'm not related to who owns the Nelson Suites at Jordan Hare Stadium. But fortunately, the girl I was with had us tickets in that suite. But seeing Cam Newton make that long run against LSU, and I knew after that game that he was going to be probably arguably the greatest quarterback in Auburn history.
Yeah.
It was just, you could see it. And when he jumped on the brick wall after the game and was standing in front of the student section, and the crowd, I mean, again, was deafening and so loud. And he was just, I don't know, something about him. I just knew that's the game I knew we've got something special.
Yeah.
And so, fortunately, we were able to go to the SEC championship game, and we blew out South Carolina. And literally in the fourth quarter, me and the girl I was dating at the time, we were on the internet looking for national championship tickets. And we were able to secure some, and we go out there, and actually, I don't know if you can see it in here or not, but this is from the national championship. That's a wristband.
Wow.
From Antoine Carter. After the game, he handed it to me. There's my ticket. That's a picture of Antoine Carter wearing the wristband, and that's the newspaper we got after the game was over.
Very nice.
Yeah, so
for listeners right now, he's showing me a plaque on his wall. He's been describing what's on there, and it is an absolutely incredible setup there. That's what I love about what you're showing me there is it's not just like tickets. You got a ticket in there, but you've got like memorabilia that nobody else is going to have. Who else is going to have Antoine Carter's wristband? I mean, that's pretty awesome.
Right. Right. It was special. And so,
but yeah, that was
being able to see that, was pretty cool to see that in person, and then shortly after that, I ended up getting married. So my time in Auburn kind of dwindled a little bit, just due to marriage and having kids and stuff. So that during my heyday, those are the big games that I was able to attend.
Those are some big moments that I kind of want to touch on for a second. Well, first of all, let me ask this: is the wife now? Is she an Auburn fan?
She is, and she was born and raised in New Orleans. She got accepted to LSU, and and I already had a roommate set up and everything, and she backed out at the last minute to go into the mission field, and so that's what she decided to do. But yeah, she is Auburn all the way, and we're actually going to the first Auburn game this year, taking my son. He's never been, so we're excited to let him experience the campus and Tiger Walk and the football game. And so
I think you and I, just for everybody listening, we do live streams sometimes on YouTube, and I think you had brought this up, and I had said to you, using the story of D Ford, who's actually episode 1 here on Auburn Roots, if people want to go back and listen to that, but getting to experience Auburn for the first time with someone else, meaning like you've already entered the Auburn family and you're converting or bringing someone into the fold, and watching it take place through their eyes is something that's absolutely incredible. It almost kind of renews your spirit. So I'm very excited for you, because not only is this, it was one thing for me with a total stranger at the time, D Ford, to experience that, and she has an incredible story, but you're getting to do that with your son.
Yeah,
that's going to be awesome.
We took him to an Atlanta Braves game earlier in the summer, and on the way back home, we drove through Auburn, got out, walked the campus. We took pictures with the statues. We walked all the way around Jordan-Hare Stadium so he could see it, and he was loving it. So I think just taking him to a game is just going to take it to the next level for him. But he's all in. He loves it. And
you have to take him for a Toomer's lemonade and just let sit him on that lawn and just sit here for a minute and soak it in. And that's it.
Yeah. Well, I tell my wife all the time, I said, when I die, I want to be cremated and spread at Toomer's Corner. And she's like, I can't do that. I can't do that. But that's where I want to be.
Here, look, you're not the first one that's done that, because I know that they've found remains there before.
Have they? I know it's probably illegal.
Yeah, it is. But I was actually living close to Toomer's Corner at the time, and I remember seeing the headline the next morning: "Human remains cremation found after a big win." And I was like, "Oh no,
oh Lord!"
Gosh. Yeah. But anyway, enough about that. I think I'm really excited for you guys to be able to experience that together as a family. It's going to make it very special. I want to kind of roll back here to some of the big games you mentioned. One we actually don't get to talk a lot about here on the podcast is the 06 Florida game. And you'd mentioned set up for those maybe that don't know what we're referencing. 2006, Auburn had just lost to USF when they were number 2, and the next game, number 2 then, Florida, because they bumped up in the rankings, was coming to Auburn, and they were eventually going to be the national champions. This was Tim Tebow's freshman year. This was, a kind of not a surprise year for Florida, but they just kind of blew everybody out of the water in terms of how fast they came onto the scene. But Auburn was the only one that beat Florida that year. So we kind of have that, to hold over them and say, hey, that record you got, that's us.
That's right.
And how good does it feel to say Tim Tebow is the only he's never beaten Auburn? Of all the teams he's beaten, he's never beaten Auburn. Isn't that crazy?
That's true. That is crazy.
So you were sitting in the upper deck in the same end zone as the punt block and the flip into the end zone.
No, I was upper deck on Auburn's side all the way at the top, like about the middle, I guess, from what I remember. But yeah, I saw the whole field. And it was just a great experience. Like I said, it was so loud. That's what I took away from that game, how loud Auburn fans can be, especially in moments like that, where the games, you're just dominating what was supposed to be a superior opponent. We were just, our defensive line, our defense was taking it to Florida. Mm-hmm. And then when they scooped and scored on that fumble and he flipped into the end zone, it had to register on the earthquake scale because it was that loud.
I was actually there with you in that game. It's funny, you and I have a lot of the same kind of moments in very close proximity to each other. I remember specifically because people forget that in that first half, Florida was not having their way with us, but they were pretty much in control, and it was like this switch had flipped. And like you said, the defense just came out and wasn't having any more of it. They were done with being pushed around, and it was just like you could see Florida got hit in the mouth and wasn't ready, and then the whole punt debacle for them, and then that just kind of all of a sudden it was Auburn's game to lose at this point. So it was an absolutely incredible game, and it couldn't have happened to a better guy in Trey Smith to pick that ball up because he's one of those. I mean, I don't know how you feel about him, but I feel like he's one of those kind of fan favorites because he's like the little guy that was pretty special? Are you a pretty fond
especially
player?
during the Tuscaloosa Iron Bowl. I
Mhm.
mean, he was crucial, you know.
Yes.
No, I love Trey Smith. He was great for Auburn.
He
I was
was,
glad he was on our team.
the little engine that could is what I
That's
always like
right.
to I
Yeah.
always like to talk to him about. We have to talk about you being at the national championship game a little more.
Yeah.
Give me some perspectives of that. What's that like? Try to paint the picture of us peons that
Man.
you weren't able to be there.
Oregon fans are about as worse as Alabama fans. I do remember that. They were horrible. And I say that in jest kind of, but I think there were some Alabama fans that lived locally that came dressed as Oregon fans because they were outside the stadium. They were being obnoxious. But the people inside the stadium, they weren't as bad. So I don't know. I'm not going to throw out conspiracy theories on that. But the game, just being there, seeing the eagle fly before the game, that was just, man, it just takes your breath away. The whole experience. We had some of the best seats in the house. We were front row. There was no seats in front of us. We were near the Oregon end zone. We were right behind the Auburn cheerleaders. So when they caught that first touchdown pass, it was literally right there in front of me. Let me see. No, not the first touchdown pass. The catch by Lutzenkirchen, where he caught that wheel route and did and I want to say even that other touchdown that they caught. I can't remember who caught it. But anyway, it was right there in our end zone. And so just being right there, basically in the front row, seeing this and seeing Cam do his thing, and then Michael Dyer, he was running the opposite way to where we were, so we couldn't really see. But when he wasn't down all the way and he kept scooting, the crowd's just going nuts. So it was just a great experience.
So you didn't have the vantage point because the Oregon fans, they talk about that little
edge.
I
couldn't see that where I was sitting, but just as when they kicked the field goal to win it, the majority of people sitting around me, everybody had tears in their eyes. Everybody was jumping and going crazy. It's one of those things where you've wanted something for so long, and not knowing if it was going to happen in my lifetime, and being able to be there to see it was something special.
Yeah, that's listen, I had my special moment for that game being in Auburn when that happened and being at Toomer's Corner. But I think it could be said both ways. Those that were in Glendale, maybe some part of you wishes that you were at Toomer's Corner, could have just transported yourself at the same moment. But I know that you wouldn't take being there, seeing that happen for anything in the world.
No, because after the game, we were sitting close to where the parents were sitting for the players. And as they were funneling over to our area, that's when Antoine Carter pulled off that wristband and handed it to me. And I thought I struck gold. It was just like, I never thought that moment could get better, but it did. You know what I mean? It's like, we just won, but now I'm about to get a piece of memorabilia, a piece of history,
right?
The way I see it. That's Auburn history. That's, so that's why I had it framed the way I did. I was like, that's something that I can pass down to my son, and he can have that. So, I felt very fortunate that I was able to be there and then experience that, and then come walk away with a piece of the game.
Yeah.
So,
everybody has their memorabilia, and pretty much everybody these days has got a signed football or something like that. But there's something special about something that has a story behind it, and that's a pretty cool story that you hand out. I mean, you can't see it here on camera with us together, but there's a picture I have that's my dad's, and it's actually got Auburn and Alabama sitting down praying together. But that was my dad's photo, his favorite photo, that always sat in his office before he passed away. And that's why, he always used to tell me about that. He say, no matter, he hated Alabama, like with a burning passion. I'm not even going to get into it. Like, I got some ridiculous things I could say, but even him, the most avid Auburn fan, the most hatred Alabama, could have a picture like that. That's why it sits up here with me in this. So the fact that you have something that's got a story behind it's pretty awesome. Yeah. Two other things I do want to touch on that you kind of already mentioned. Sitting in the nice seats, the suites up there. Again, I said we were little peons that didn't get to be at the championship game like you. We were definitely peons that didn't get to sit in the suites. For those of us that sit down there and look up at the glass while you're in there, tell us a little bit about it. What's it like up there?
That was the LSU game. I remember there being plenty of food, free food, out of the sun, great view, because I think the Nelson Suite is more towards the south end zone. And so, I mean, we just had a great view of that's the view where I saw Cam make that long run and make it to the end zone. And that, I don't know. Yeah, it was pretty neat. That's the only time I've ever been in a suite at Auburn, and probably the only time I ever will be, I guess, because I just don't have those connections anymore. But it was a nice, more of a relaxing type feel where you had plenty of food and drink and comfortable seats and a great game being played in front of you.
I sometimes just look up there as I'm sitting down in the lower bowl or even in the upper deck. It just like, that sun would be really nice to not be in right now.
Yeah, right.
Because it can get pretty toasty up there in the upper deck when you get those weird 11 o'clock games that Auburn never does well in.
Right.
We have talked a lot about football, and obviously we recognize that football is the engine that drives the car, but there are other parts of the car that are necessary for it to keep going, the car that is Auburn. You have a little bit of a history with Auburn baseball, and you've been part of the Auburn Diamond Club. Is that correct? Can you tell us a little bit about that? What's that all about for those of us that maybe have not a lot of awareness about what that is?
Yeah, from what I remember, I assume they might still do it, but this was probably mid 2000s, 2007, 2008. I don't know. It's an organization that raises money to help fund and support the Auburn baseball team, and so with your membership, you get this little pin and a T-shirt, and I can't remember what the donation amount is, but it's just, like I said, an organization that helps raise money and awareness for the Auburn baseball team. And I even believe they even have a banquet, maybe. I didn't attend that. But I would go and watch Auburn baseball fairly frequently during the year because baseball is actually my favorite sport. So going over there and seeing, the field, which in 2004 was voted best in all of collegiate baseball, which I think they did a fantastic job with what they did and building that field. It has elements from, Camden Yards, Wrigley Field, Fenway. They try to tie in a lot of different things, and it's by far one of the nicest baseball fields you'll find in all of college. So it's just a good experience. If you love sitting down and watching baseball, it's a great experience. And, one of the games I went to, I have something else on my wall that's autographed. In 2003, I went to a baseball game, and I know the listeners can't see it, but I'll show you.
It's an Auburn for us.
It's an Auburn baseball card. It's Auburn scorecard.
Yeah.
And it's got some old players on the front. Well, Ronnie Brown and Brandon Jacobs were in the stands, and so I had both of those guys sign it, and I had it framed to match a magazine that I had Cadillac Williams sign at a football practice in 2004, which, like I told you before we started, that I got him in trouble because I thought football practice was over, and I called Cadillac over to sign my magazine, and the coach started yelling at him. I kind of felt bad, but man, he was super nice, and I felt fortunate to be able to get a signature before coaches hustled him into the field house where they were about to do some indoor drills, I assume. But that was back then. I mean, you could just walk up to an Auburn football practice and stand on the sidelines. Me and one of my fraternity brothers just stood there watching them, and nobody ever said anything to us. And I don't know, it's probably not like that today, but back then it was.
Times have definitely changed, hasn't it? a lot of access you used to have to things.
Mm-hmm.
That you don't have anymore. So that if people are interested in helping support the Auburn baseball program, I believe that's still going on, the Auburn Diamond Club. It's a great way if it's something to invest in a program. We talk about the big three: football, baseball, and basketball. I think it's obvious to everybody that baseball kind of is the third in that tier, especially now with the advent of Bruce Pearl being here and, the amazing marketer that he is and what he's done for the program there. Baseball does tend to, I hate to say it, but for lack of a better way of saying it, take a back seat. So it is something that I think that fans should be aware of and take part in if they're very passionate about baseball, because I think people forget how storied our history is with baseball too. I mean, you got Bo Jackson there, for crying out loud, Tim Hudson, Frank Thomas. You just got names that you can keep. Well, Josh Donaldson now, the bringer of rain. How awesome was it?
Daphne. I mean, when he's in the off season, he's here in Daphne, and I got to at the local baseball card shop and got my picture with him. His mom lives right up the street from me, so he's still in this. He's in this area when he's not playing baseball. So,
did you ever get to go to a game at the Braves when he was there?
No, I didn't.
Oh man,
I had. Before COVID hit, I had secured tickets to spring training for both the Braves and the Red Sox. Braves and Red Sox. And the Red Sox were going to be playing the Twins. And so this is when he had just signed to go over to the Twins. And then COVID hit. And so StubHub had to refund my money for the tickets. And so I had all intentions of taking my son down to spring training, see both the Braves and the Red Sox, and obviously Josh Donaldson, because he's a hometown boy, and just wanted to support him. And he's such a great guy. Yeah. He's so down to earth. And I went to Faith Academy here in the Mobile area. Growing up, I didn't graduate from there, but I went there and I played JV baseball at Faith Academy, and I got to tell him that I played baseball at Faith Academy, not the varsity level, but that I also went to Faith Academy, and he thought that was pretty cool. But I hate that he left the Braves, because the Braves are our team, of course.
Right.
And,
broke my little heart when I saw Josh walk away from the Braves. I was like,
I know, mine too.
I
just wish they would have a longer contract. That's all he was looking for, is a little bit more longer contract, and I don't blame him. So,
yeah. So, well, there's plenty more. There's much more talent that's being cycled into the MLB now, anyway, from Auburn under Butch Thompson. So we'll be having plenty of opportunities to probably see some Auburn Tigers make their way over to the South's hometown heroes in the Atlanta Braves.
Yeah.
In the coming years. I think we've gotten a pretty good perspective of your Auburn story and a lot of the different things that you've experienced. But one thing I always want to do with our guests before we wrap up our time is do a fun little questionnaire. It's about 12 questions, kind of this or that. Pick your favorite. This usually gets some pretty interesting answers. So if you're ready, we can do that.
Let's do it.
All right. Question number 1, orange or blue?
Blue. Navy blue is my favorite color. Period.
Does it look better on you? Because I get a lot of that little blue looks better on me.
I guess it would. But to me, navy blue is it for me. That's my favorite color. I mean, I do love the orange with it. But yeah, if I had to pick a shirt, I'm going to probably wear the navy blue one.
That's a good choice right there. Question 2, Aubie or War Eagle?
Aubie. He's by far the best mascot, hands down, in all of sports, period. And that's why he's won so many national championships. So to me, he brings a lot to the table for Auburn. I'll say that.
He really does. And it's always interesting if you go and look at the history of Aubie and the history of, or the Tiger as it used to be called back in the day. And you can see how the look of Aubie has changed over time. It's an incredible history that he has. And, if you hadn't picked Aubie, you would have been, I couldn't have marked you safe from the minions of Aubie, because they are like a little cult and they'd come after you. So you are safe, my friend. Question 3, what's your favorite part of the Auburn fight song? A word, a phrase, but if you had to pick a favorite part, what would it be?
Oh, you put me on the spot. Let me see here. I sing it all the time around the house. Here, sing it to me and I'll tell you.
War Eagle, flight on the field, ever to conquer, never to yield.
Yeah.
Fearless and true, fight on your orange and blue.
I think that first part, ever to conquer, never to yield. I think that sums it up right there.
Yeah, it speaks to the Auburn spirit a little bit, I think.
Yeah, it does.
All right, question 4. We probably know the answer to this one, but we'll see if there's well, maybe not. We'll see. Your favorite Auburn athletics program? Football all the way to equestrian. What's your favorite one?
I mean, yeah, I'll go with football.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what's I have the most memories with. And so, yeah, definitely football.
Yeah, it's hard to beat football, but you'd be surprised how often it gets picked as a second to something else. Because I think, like we always say that everybody recognizes how important football is, but sometimes people make a really special connection with some of these other programs that people aren't aware of. So it's always interesting to hear different takes on that. Question 5, your favorite Auburn athlete?
Gonna have to go Bo Jackson. He's the greatest athlete of all time anyway, but as far as Auburn, him choosing to come to Auburn after he even met with Alabama, and they wanted him at linebacker and not really running back. And so, and they said he would never win at Auburn. And he said, I am going to win at Auburn. And he came and won at Auburn. So to me, Bo Jackson is it for me.
Well, and with your ties to loving football and baseball, it's kind of hard to beat that when you got a guy who did both of them.
Bo Jackson just in 2020, last year, he came down to the Senior Bowl. And I got to get my picture with him, and shake his hand. So never thought I'd be able to get to do that. So, but yeah, Bo Jackson for sure.
Getting to meet a lot of names, it sounds like, over the years.
Mm-hmm.
Question 6, your favorite Auburn coach?
Pat Dye.
And why?
Because he came over and, I mean, he brought a new vision for Auburn football. And for Auburn, and I think he's the one that's credited with saying, Alabama fans love Alabama football, Auburn people love Auburn, and that's so true. And getting to meet him and seeing what he did for our program, Pat Dye he definitely holds a special place in my heart.
It's hard to beat, in terms of especially the modern era. Picking that type of name over anybody else, just especially now with his recent passing and all that, it's what he did for Auburn goes beyond the football field, and it's just a special name in Auburn lore. Question 7, your favorite Auburn non-athletics person. So a little bit of clarification for you. This can be anybody that is not directly associated with athletics, meaning like a athlete or a coach. But if you've got a friend, family member, celebrity, but your favorite non-athletics Auburn person?
Oh, good question. Gosh, I don't think.
There's always the easy question. Answer your wife.
True. I think she only loves Auburn. I love Auburn though. Gosh. And I'm the type of person, when I see somebody on TV or an actor or somebody that, has ties to Auburn, I'm always telling my wife, they went to Auburn.
Yeah.
But now that you ask, I'm like drawing a blank here. But I don't know. Good question.
Drawing a blank, huh?
Yeah, I'm just trying to think outside the box here. I'm trying to make it a lot harder than it really is.
Well, when you're thinking of how big the Auburn family is, there's a lot to choose from, even the ones that aren't directly associated with athletics.
I don't know. Bo Jackson is me. We'll just go with Bo on this question.
Okay. There we go. Question 8, your favorite Auburn building. Can be on campus, off campus. If you can make a case for an Auburn building way over in another country, I'll take it. But your favorite Auburn building?
Stanford Hall.
And why?
So iconic. It's right there in the heart of downtown. It's picturesque. It just speaks to the hometown feel of the campus. I don't know, something about it. Actually, me and my son took a picture in front of it when we came back from Atlanta. It just something about it. Just like I said, it just reminds me of just a small town feel. Even though it's a larger building, it's just right there in the heart of downtown, and it's just like I said, so picturesque. So
it's a very good pick. It's a very popular pick, but it doesn't take away from how special it is.
Yeah.
Question 9, your favorite Auburn place to eat?
Mama Goldberg's.
What do you love to eat there?
Those Doritos and the cheesy Doritos. I don't know what the name of them are, but I remember I love those. And of course their sandwich.
Yeah, it's hard to beat your mama's love. I used to be a Turkey Delight person there, but mama's love it's
Mama's love. That's right. That's it.
Do you? And let's see if you agree with me on this, because there are several locations for Mama Goldberg's, even outside of Auburn.
Oh, we have Mobile.
Right. So
Yeah.
it's always good, but there's something about going into that musty, decrepit old building that makes it taste better. Am I right or am I wrong?
Because it's covered. The walls are just covered with Auburn history.
Yeah.
Like old newspaper clippings. There's articles. I mean, it's an iconic location, of course.
I will go out of my way to eat there over any other place, but if I have to, I'll just get my mama's love wherever I can get it.
Yeah.
Let's see. Question 10, your favorite Auburn tradition. So this can be sports, non-sports, a weird personal tradition you have related to Auburn, but your favorite Auburn tradition.
Rolling Toomer's Corner. I mean, I know everybody probably says that, but to me, that's so special for our Auburn family. That's we all congregate there after a huge win and celebrate. And so that, to me, I'm hoping to be able to do that with my son this year.
I need pictures of that moment too. I need to see them, and share them out on your social media and all that kind of stuff. Those are special memories when you see someone do that for the first time. And then, you always get the weird looks and weird questions from people that don't understand. You're like, just go over there to your little Crimson Tides and stuff. Don't talk to us. Question 11, your favorite Auburn memory.
Well, it's going to be going to the national championship game. I never thought I would ever get the chance to go to a game that size and see Auburn, win and come out victorious and bring home the trophy. And like I said earlier, bring home a piece of game history. So that's by far the highlight of my Auburn experience.
I continue to be jealous of you being there and seeing, hearing, smelling, the whole of the experience of being there. It's got to have been one of a kind. It's going to be really hard to beat that. Question 12, your final question. Describe Auburn to me in one word other than family.
Oh, special.
Special.
Special. There's just something special about it. And those on the outside, other fans of other programs, they'll never understand. And, I'm okay with that, because we know as an Auburn family and people that support Auburn know what that special is. And so I'd say special.
That's a great word. I don't know that we've had that one used yet, surprisingly, but it's a great way to just define it. Because as we talked about at the beginning of this, it's a very nebulous concept. It's very hard to pinpoint, hard to understand unless you've experienced it. But once you have, you understand it, even if you can't explain it. So special is a great way to sum all that up. Kevin, it has been great to get to sit down with you, get to know you better as a Booster Club member, but also as an Auburn family member. And we really appreciate you sharing that with us, telling your stories. And I hope you understand now how special your Auburn story is and how many cool, unique experiences that you've had.
Hey, thanks for having me, and I look forward to possibly meeting you at a game.
Oh, we're going to make it happen, my friend. So thank you guys for listening to this episode 34 of Auburn Roots. We'll be back again very soon. Thank you for listening. Until we talk to you again, War Eagle.
War Eagle.